In this video, we're going to demonstrate the solution to problem 12.5, part C. To complete this exercise, we're going to need to use, among other things, two functions in Excel that you may not be familiar with. We're going to use the CountA function, which does not count empty cells, but it counts the cells that contain alpha numeric values, or errors, or even empty text, just blank values. We'll also use the offset function, which operates in two ways. When you're not using the optional elements, it has the ability to go out and retrieve a value from an array of values. When you use the optional elements, it has the ability to go out and retrieve a range of values that can be used in another Excel function for calculations. The power here is the ability to scale this, or to make it larger or smaller, to use the offset function to change what value you're retrieving or what range of values you're retrieving. I'd like to demonstrate that. I have a demo tab here. I'm going to enter the CountA function and just have it count the number of cells in row 3 that contain values. Enter CountA, and when I enter the reference, if I leave the column portion off, it will look at the entire row. So instead of starting at A3, I'm just going to say 3 to 3. And you can see how it selects the entire row, all 1024 columns all the way out. When I press enter, you can see that there are 6 cells in row 3 that contain values that are not empty. I'll use the formula text to put that up there so you can see it easier. Now let's use the offset function to retrieve a value from the values here in row 9 that we specify in cell A11. You can see I have used the CountA function here to count the non-empty cells in row 9. So there are 5. That's just to illustrate how this is working. I can use the offset function to retrieve 20, the value in position 2 in this row. I'll use offset. I have to tell it where to start. I want it to start in the first position of the row. I'm just going to leave the cell references relative. I'm not going to copy this anywhere. The next two portions of the syntax, the first one deals with the rows. I'm starting here on row 9. What rows wants to know is how many rows I want to move. Well, I don't want to move any rows. I want to stay on row 9. So I'm going to put a 0 there. Positive numbers will move me down. Negative numbers will move me up. Then it asks for the number of columns that I want to move. I want to move over one column. I want to go to the second position in this row. What you have to remember is when you use offset, these begin counting with row 0. Row 0 is the current position. So as I look at this, I say, well, 20 is in position 2. And I've indicated I would like to get the value in position 2. But I have to remember that offset begins at position 0. So I always have to subtract a 1 to get that value. When I do that, I get the value 20. If I change this to position 3, I'll get the value 30, position 4. Now, if I change it to position 6, which has no values, I get nothing. However, if I go out here and put a value in position 6, offset will see that and return that value as a 60. Now it's a new value. And CountA also sees one more cell that is not empty, so it counts that value. Now I'm going to take what I've learned about offset and CountA, and I'm going to use the offset function to identify a rolling range of values, and this is something that we'll need for the exercise, this concept of being able to change the start point of a range of values for graphing or summing or whatever you want to do. I'm going to use the sum function, and to specify the range I'm going to use the offset function. I'm going to start here in cell A9. I'm going to stay on that row, stay on row 9, so I'm going to enter a 0 there. Columns, I want the user in this cell to be able to tell me in which column to begin the range that I want summed. So I will point there, and remember that the user is going to start counting from 1, but offset is going to start counting from 0. So I have to take 1 off to translate the user's instruction to an instruction that's meaningful to offset. The height, I want my sum range to be 1 row high, so I will enter a 1. And the width, in other words, how many columns do I want contained in my sum range, I will use the CountA function, count the number of non-blank cells on row 9, and I will subtract from that the starting position indicated by the user, -1, translated into something that offset can understand. When I do that, you can see that it sums the values and I get 50. If I change this to 4, now it sums 40 and 50, starts at position 4 and goes to position 5, returns a 90. If I enter a 3, you can see that it expands the range to include these 3 positions, starting at position 3 and continuing to, again, position 5 that the CountA is returning. Now, the great thing here is if I add 60 here, if I add, it will see that, hey, he's added a value, he's added a new column, so CountA extends the sum range, and the sum range goes out and includes that value in its sum. So I will use the formula text to let you see the formulas here, so you can work on them a little bit if you'd like. And that's what you'll need to know to accomplish the graphing problem in exercise 12.5c.